So then Hannah, I guess you'll go first, and then Ellen, you'll go second.
Sounds great.
Hello. He's running in from class.
Okay. Make sure it opens the right way. Nope.
Hey, Dr. Tiffin, how are you?
Perfect. There we go.
All right, good to go?
Yep. That will be good. And you know how we do, we'll give a little banter, talk a little bit about it, and then we'll say, hey, Dr. Tifton, please put on your camera. And that's when we'll have you pop in. So,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Billy, you have any questions for either one?
No, I think I'm good right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Tiffin, appreciate you being with us again, as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Ooh, and Dr. Tiffin, my presentation after yours is all about fall webworm. So you are formally invited to join for that one if you would like and
I know nothing
chime
about
in.
it.
Oh, well, I figure you know more than you think.
Probably not. I don't even know what that is. Is that the ones
Oh,
that
perfect.
create the webs in the trees?
They do. But I know you're an entomologist, so I just wanted to say you are
Yeah.
invited, you're deputized to join.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, if it doesn't bite people or animals, it's not in my knowledge at all.
I get that. Yeah,
It
I'm
has
like,
to be a biter, and then otherwise, I have no idea what's going on.
well, fortunately, this one does not bite that I know of.
Yeah.
Only trees. So
Yeah.
Things that suck, right?
Yes, exactly. If they don't bite or suck, forget it.
Funny.
All right, should I go ahead and turn my camera off until?
Yeah, we'll holler back at you in a second.
All right. Cool.
So it'll be Hannah and then Ellen. Looks like your stuff came in on right. Mine came in. I was like squished and I had half a logo and I had to like switch everything in
Well,
Zoom.
unlike you were the one helping me, right? So I wasn't.
Well, I was gonna say, hey Billy, this is what you need to do because Emerson and I panicked for about 5 minutes and then finally figured it out. So,
Good.
2 minutes till. Should we
I know it's exciting.
start the webinar or not? Or just give another minute before we do?
Up to you. I'm okay if you want to start it. We can.
Yeah, let's go ahead if you're okay with it.
We started.
Mm.
This shirt, my collar always pops the wrong way.
It happens. Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. A little cooler in the mornings. The thing about it is about this time of year, you never know what to wear. It's like you need a hoodie in the morning and then you need shorts in the afternoon. So it's kind of difficult. So,
Yes. Tis the season.
Tis the season. But I like this season. It's my season. I like the burr months.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Hope everybody's doing good out there. Might go ahead and get this thing recorded. Looks like we're about a minute or less out.
Mm-hmm. Caught your breath from running over from class.
Fortunately, it's not that far.
Yeah, that's good. And my student was like, he should leave early. He's got from the woods today. I was like, eh. It was funny. Yeah. Cue the Jeopardy music.
I know. Emerson just giving you some more to cut out.
Yeah, there you go. All right. It's 11.
I got the time.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
Welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, we are talking about certain kinds of bugs today.
Yes, I know. The insect world is coming to join us, I guess, right? So,
pretty much.
No, we're really excited to have you all with us today. We've got two great speakers. Really looking forward to having them with us. We're going to be talking about something that many of our woodland owners and those that are out in the woods just have to deal with on a regular basis, and that's ticks, right? We don't want to know about it. We don't want to hear about it, but folks, you need to learn about this if you don't know. So we have Dr. Hannah Tippin with UK Entomology. She's going to be talking about, how we can maybe think about managing or dealing with those ticks in our woodland setting. So we've had Dr. Tippin on before. She does such a great job, and we're really excited to have her. And then we have Dr. Ellen Crocker with another edition of What's Bugging My Tree. And this one is going to be fall webworms. So she's going to be talking about those, maybe seeing those now or will be in the near future. So we've got two great speakers on, got great topics, but it's about you all. Glad to have you all with us. We do this show for you all. So if you've got questions for any of our presenters or Renee or myself, please let us know. You can use the chat function if you're with us live on Zoom. And if you're a YouTuber or a podcast listener, thank you very much. But you can hit us up via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond that way. But Renee, glad to be with you on this beautiful day here in Lexington, Kentucky, with two outstanding presenters. So
Definitely. So let's go ahead and get started. So Dr. Tifton, if you'd like to turn on your camera. Welcome to the show again. We greatly appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I know, you were talking a little bit before the show. It's like if they bite or suck, then you deal with that. So I'm like,
okay.
on for other bugs as well.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, gotta draw the line somewhere. There's bugs out there.
There you go.
No, Dr. Tiffin.
Start your presentation. We appreciate that.
Sounds good.
And I know, ticks is a big thing, especially now, with all the alpha-gal and all of that coming on, it's something people need to know about, especially woodland owners, because, they're going to get something being out in their woods.
Exactly. So can you see that all right?
We got you. All right, looks good.
All right, perfect. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for having me on the show again today. Happy to be here, happy to talk about ticks and mosquitoes. I'll spend a little bit more time on ticks since that's kind of more of our concern here in Kentucky, but I'll talk a little bit about mosquitoes as well because we do have some mosquito-borne diseases that affect people and affect animals here in Kentucky. All right, so I'll start off talking about ticks. We have about 4 or 5 tick species that are our primary concern for human and for animal health. I have 4 pictured here because they're really the top 4 that we worry about when we're talking about diseases that can affect people and can affect our domestic animals. So at the top there, you can see the black-legged tick. This is also known as the deer tick, Ixodes scapularis. This one is the tick that's associated with Lyme disease. We don't have a lot of Lyme disease cases here in Kentucky, but we do have some, and it is a disease that is increasing in the number of cases we're seeing. The second one down, that's our Lone Star tick. It's also known by a couple other names, so some people call it turkey ticks. Some people even call them turkey mites. Usually when they're saying turkey mites, they're talking about the larval stage, so that's the teeny tiny first mobile stage of ticks. And that's usually people are talking about Lone Star ticks when they're saying turkey mites. The reason for that is Lone Stars kind of have this interesting hatching behavior where they'll lay eggs in kind of like a clutch and then they'll all hatch together. So they have synchronous hatching. So if you're the unfortunate person walking through your woods and suddenly you have all these teeny tiny critters crawling on you, and they're ticks, it's a good chance it's a Lone Star tick because they all kind of hatch at once. So that's why people sometimes call them turkey mites as well. Then our third one down, that's our American dog tick. Some people also call those wood ticks as well. They're a bit bigger of a tick, so you could see kind of on that chart there that they're the largest tick that we deal with here, especially as an adult. And then lastly, our Asian longhorn ticks. So these are a new invasive species that we have here in the United States. We do have them in Kentucky, and I'll have one slide just it's specifically about them as well, since they are a newer tick that we're dealing with. So all of these tick species generally prefer habitat that's shaded and has lots of tangled overgrowth. This is because ticks are they dry out very easily. So they need something that provides some sort of protection, especially from direct sunlight. So you're usually not going to find them in like a short open field, though you could. Generally, you're going to find them in more of a wilder, brushy habitat or taller grasses. A lot of these tick species, they do this behavior that's called questing, where they'll go to the top of a blade of grass or top of a blade of brush. They put out their two little front legs there, and then they have these kind of specialized organs in those two front legs where they're sensing for hosts coming by. So that's what the tick there in that little video image is doing. She's waiting for a tick or a host to come by, a human or an animal to come by, and then she can latch on. However, I will say that Lone Star ticks can act a little bit differently. So they can be active questers, so they can do the behavior we saw on that previous slide, but they also do this activity called hunting. So they'll actually move towards their hosts. So instead of just waiting on brush or leaves, they'll actually be out there kind of looking for, detecting for host signatures or host cues, and then they'll actually move towards their host, which is a little bit different. It makes them a little bit more aggressive biters than some of our other tick species.
Have you ever
I will play that video for you all. Okay. The important thing to know about Lone Star ticks is they are the tick that's mostly associated with alpha-gal syndrome, also called red meat allergy. That's a syndrome that we're seeing really on the rise here in Kentucky, and a couple of the other southern and southeastern states in the US. Not totally sure of a lot of the mechanisms behind it, but it can cause a lot of different issues. If you have if you're dealing with that, or you have a loved one that is suffering from that, or you just have some questions about how to avoid tick bites, what to do if you have a Lone Star tick bite, things like that. We gave about an hour-long webinar through UK Extension with a couple other folks, and you are welcome to look that up on YouTube or use this QR code to get some more information there. And then lastly, with the ticks, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Asian longhorn tick. This is our new invasive species that we're dealing with here in Kentucky. It's parthenogenic, which means she doesn't need a male in order to reproduce. And so she can have really high infestations on animal or on the landscape really fast. So they can lay a lot of eggs very quickly. And that can cause issues for the animal themselves because of these just high numbers of ticks that are feeding on them. That can cause anemia or toxicosis. It can kind of compromise the immune system. And we have had cattle deaths from this tick, both because of just these, high numbers of ticks on the cattle, but also because this tick is responsible for causing tyleriosis in cattle. And so that can also cause sickness or death in our cows. And we've had a couple of those cases here in Kentucky, and it's something that we're paying attention to. All right, so that's all well and good, but let's talk about how we actually prevent tick bites in the first place. So the best thing you can do to prevent tick bites is to be thinking about personal protection. So for personal protection, what we're thinking is how can we change our behaviors so that we're reducing exposure to tick bites and to ticks themselves. So one of the things we can do is limiting our time in tick risky areas or times of day, and I'll go into what a kind of tick risky area looks like. And then we can also wear protective clothing, so like long pants, long sleeves. This is one of really the most important safety tactics that you can use when you're talking about ticks, and it's great to establish that as kind of your foundation or your baseline, and then you can add some other safety precautions on top of that. So when we're talking about tick risky areas, these are places that are a little bit more, kind of wilder locations. So maybe a little bit overgrown, brushy, tall grasses. And avoiding those locations when possible is really kind of one of your best steps to avoiding tick bites. I always like to show this picture of my dogs clearly in tick risky habitat, because just to say it's not always possible to avoid those habitats, right? You can't always avoid tick risky areas. And sometimes, frankly, you don't want to. You want to be out in nature. You want to be enjoying a trail that maybe isn't paved. And that's certainly okay. That's why we have a whole variety of different tactics that you can use in order to protect yourself and protect your animals. So when we're thinking about both ticks and mosquitoes, we want to be thinking in terms of using the best offense that we can to protect against those bites, to protect against coming into contact with ticks when we can. So with ticks in particular, one of the things we can do is wear lighter colored clothing. I often get questions on whether that repels ticks, and unfortunately, no, but it does help us to be able to see them easier, especially when they're in those really tiny larval or nymphal stages. So when they're younger and smaller, it's much easier to see them when you're wearing that light colored clothing. You can also use DEET or other similar repellent, and that will keep ticks from being able to essentially find you. You can treat your clothing beforehand. So this is something I like to recommend doing in, spring or maybe even early summer, so that you are treating your clothing with insect repellent, something like permethrin, and that will kill ticks on contact. So when they contact your clothing, they will die from that. This is something you can treat your clothing with beforehand, or you can buy pre-treated clothing, or go through a couple different companies that are out there that will treat your clothing if you send it into them. And this is a great resource because if you treat your clothing in the beginning of tick season, then again, it's one of those things you don't necessarily have to keep thinking about every time you go out, right? It creates that foundation of safety when you're going out into the woods or into potentially tick risky habitat. So some of the other things we want to think about when we're going into these kind of tick risky areas is wearing long sleeves and pants, just making it more difficult for ticks to get to you. Doing tick checks when we come back from those places or while you're out, especially if you're out for a long period of time. You can do that in the shower. So a shower is kind of a great tool for not only being able to do a tick check easier, but also so that you can dislodge any ticks that maybe aren't attached yet or aren't fully attached yet. And then throwing your clothes into a hot dryer. So I had mentioned earlier that ticks dry out really easily. A hot dryer is great for being able to kill any ticks that are on your clothing. And then I just wanted to share this nice tool for you guys. This is a tool put out by the EPA, and it allows you to find a repellent based on a couple different things that you put into the tool. So you can put in how long you're planning to be outside, if you want protection from mosquitoes or ticks or both of them, and then a couple other things, and it'll give you a list of different repellents that you could use to help protect in those circumstances, that you can choose from that might be best for you and your family. And then domestic pet products. So we don't just want to be thinking about protecting ourselves from ticks, but we also want to be thinking about protecting our animals, especially our domestic animals and our working animals. So there's many different options available. I'm not a veterinarian. This is something you should work with your local veterinarian about. They know your animals best. They know your lifestyle best. They'll be able to help you pick out the things that are best for you and your animals and your family. This doesn't even just protect your animals from getting tick bites or mosquito bites and diseases, but it also can help protect from if you have indoor outdoor dogs, from your dogs bringing in pests into the house. So protects you and any other indoor animals from being bitten by ticks because you're treating the animal outdoors, so it's not bringing those ticks inside. We want to be thinking about how we're doing tick checks as well. So when ticks are latching on, they're generally looking for places that are kind of safe and secure, hidden away, and provide easy access to a blood meal. So oftentimes this means like thinner skin. So we're thinking of places like behind the ears, under the tail on dogs, in between the toes, maybe under the armpits or under your dog's legs. With dogs, we're also thinking maybe around the eyes too. The ticks can attach there and around the muzzle and under the jawline. So we want to be focusing in on those areas, just to make sure we're, double, triple checking that those areas don't have any ticks attached. When we're removing a tick, we want to get as close to the head of the tick as possible, so as close to the skin as possible, by pulling the skin tight and then getting as close to the skin as possible and then pulling straight up. No twisting or turning. Pulling straight up is really important because we want to be removing the entire tick and not leaving anything behind. We want to get as close to the skin as possible so that we're not pushing on the tick's abdomen. If you're grabbing by the abdomen, so further away from the skin, you run the risk of the tick regurgitating its gut contents into you, which could carry any of those pathogens that we're trying to avoid in the first place. So, as I said, we want to, pull the skin tight and then pull straight up on the tick. You can also make your own tick kit. So you can throw this in the car, you can have this in your dog walking bag, just have it on you. If you just want to remove the tick, very simple. All you need is a pair of tweezers and some type of sanitizer. So you can have just a little bottle of hand sanitizer, maybe an alcohol prep pad. That's just so that you can, make sure that the tweezers are clean, make sure your hands are clean, and the bite site is all clean. If you want to keep the tick for identification or for testing, then you just need to add to that kit either a Ziploc bag or some type of little vial. So you can use like a pill bottle for this, just remove any of the medical information on that. And include a marker in your kit as well so that you can take down any, pertinent notes like county collected, date collected, and what type of, person was it collected from a person or an animal. Put that on the bottle as well. Um, if you're submitting for tick testing, there's specific guidelines to follow for that. So I'll have a QR code that goes to our tick testing site at the end. If you're submitting just for identification, then you can just freeze that or add some hand sanitizer that doesn't have aloe or ethanol. And then you can send that in to my lab just for identification. Okay, so if you're submitting a tick and you want that tested for a few of these kind of human diseases that we're looking at that can also affect some animals, you can submit that to Dr. Reddy Polly's lab, and that is the QR code on the left of the screen. They'll provide identification as well, but they'll do select pathogen testing, so looking at some of those disease-causing organisms that might be present in the tick. If you just want the tick identified, then you can submit that through extension through my lab. So that's the Bite Lab, and that's the QR code that's on the right there. All right, now we'll get into mosquitoes. So there are a ton of different mosquito species in the US and even in Kentucky specifically. We have many, many different species. Some of these species have preferences for feeding on people, and some have preferences for feeding on certain kinds of animals. Some don't care and they'll feed on whatever's around. They could transmit a variety of different types of viruses or parasites that can cause disease in people and humans. When we're talking about Kentucky specifically, a couple of the diseases that we see pop up here are West Nile, Triple E, which can rarely affect humans, but it can kill unvaccinated horses. So it's really important to work with your veterinarian if you have horses to make sure that they're up to date on their vaccinations. Rarely, we do see St. Louis encephalitis, lacrosse virus, and Zika virus transmitted by mosquitoes here in Kentucky, but that's not very common. One of the more common things that we see here is dog heartworm, but that is preventable. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that one. So heartworm is preventable, but an average of about 7 in 10 mosquitoes in a heartworm positive dog's kennel can carry heartworm, which means that if you have one heartworm positive dog in the neighborhood or at the kennel, that substantially increases the risk of infection for other healthy dogs. This is an issue here in the southern United States. You can see in that map there, it's pretty red where Kentucky is, so we do have a good number of cases of heartworm that circulate. We see this every year in Kentucky. So it's a pretty common disease, but it is preventable when you're working with your veterinarian to make sure your dogs are up to date and have their year-round medication. Okay, so mosquitoes really only need two main things in order to survive. So this is water. They can have, this can be stagnant water, meaning it doesn't move a lot or at all. Some species do prefer a little bit of slow moving or medium moving water. I'm going to mostly be talking about species that prefer this kind of stagnant water because that's what we see when, we're thinking about mosquitoes around the home. They also require organic material. So this provides a kind of a safety protection for eggs because it provides kind of a safety layer. It also provides nutrition for those immature stages. So after the eggs hatch, the larvae of mosquitoes are fully aquatic. So they're looking for some sort of nutrition in that environment where they're hatching. So in that water source. So there's a bunch of different types of larval sites where mosquitoes can survive and thrive. When we're talking about the ones that we're finding around the house, this is generally things like containers. So it can be containers, it can be debris. Some other species can be found pretty commonly in things like dump sites, so in tires. We do have one species of mosquito that its common name is the tree hole mosquito, because it seems to prefer reproducing in tree holes. So that showed a picture of that on the left there. When we're talking about mosquito control around the house, there's 3 words I want you to remember, and that's tip, toss, treat. So we're tipping out any standing water. We're tossing any trash or debris, anything that can be sources that can hold water. And then we're treating those areas that have standing water. So things like a bird bath or a ornamental pond. We don't have to totally get rid of those things, but we want to treat them with some different options that we have available. So I'll go into that in a second as well. And just keep in mind that there are a couple species of mosquitoes that can hatch in less than a tablespoon of water. So they can actually hatch in things like a bottle cap. So that's why it's really important, especially during these high mosquito times of year. So in the summer, especially, we want to be keeping any debris picked up around the yard, not have places where mosquitoes could be laying eggs and hatching. So for example, this is a well-manicured yard, well-manicured area, but there's still some areas where we might be seeing some mosquito breeding sites. So things like bird baths. Again, I'm not saying that you need to get rid of your bird baths, but you can add things to them that makes it less likely to be a mosquito breeding site. So this is something like adding mosquito dunks. This has BTI in it, which targets mosquito larvae and is fine around the birds. So you can add that to your bird bath. You can also just replace the water in your bird bath pretty frequently, and that'll help both the birds and your mosquito populations. Flower pots sometimes get this kind of standing water on top, so making sure that there's no standing water or dumping it out as frequently as possible will help with that component. Mosquitoes can also lay eggs and hatch in eaves and gutters. And these can also provide, not only standing water, but they have this kind of organic material from this leaf litter that gets left over in them. So cleaning up our eaves and gutters as frequently as possible will help with that as well. All right, so there's a little bit more going on back in this, backyard site. And so we want to be making sure, especially during these, high mosquito times of year, that we're cleaning up some trash and debris and anything that's kind of laying around and might have standing water in it that mosquitoes could be found in. I have a picture of a fish pond here just to kind of get you thinking about some other sites that maybe we're not, initially thinking about as mosquito larval sites. Again, I'm not saying that you need to get rid of these ornamental ponds, but there's some things we can use in order to have mosquito control. So you can add aeration through things like a fountain or some type of mechanism that gets the water moving. That will make it less easy for mosquitoes to lay eggs and for those eggs to hatch. You can also add some different mosquito fish type predators that will eat the mosquito eggs and mosquito larvae, and that will do wonders for your mosquito control. So overall, when we're out and about though, we want to be avoiding buggy areas as much as possible. So this is things like marshy, swampy areas that have that kind of stagnant water, times of day with high mosquito activity. So generally speaking, this is dusk and dawn, though we do have some active daytime species here in Kentucky. So just kind of paying attention to, when you're out and about and you're seeing mosquitoes, hopefully you have those long sleeves, long pants, and you have your repellents with you as well. Maybe avoiding going out and hiking during or right after flooding events. These events can lead to, mosquito kind of overpopulation, and make it a little bit more difficult to avoid getting bitten in those events. And then avoiding, dump sites or areas with a lot of debris because that can have a lot of that standing water. All right. So quick takeaways, we want to be avoiding buggy and tick risky areas. So we just went over those kind of buggy areas, but when we're talking about tick risky, these are sites that are a little bit more, kind of wild looking, brushier areas, higher grass, and then times of day with high tick activity. This really varies, especially here in Kentucky, but it seems like late morning is kind of the highest tick activity that we're seeing here. They don't like to be out when it's very hot out, or when it's really cool. For both of these disease vectors, we want to be thinking, the best offense a good offense is your best defense. So we want to be thinking, how can we prevent getting bites in the first place? So that's by, wearing those long sleeves and pants, using DEET or a similar repellent, going to that EPA tool and finding what will work for you and your family. Treating clothes beforehand with an insect repellent or permethrin type of product. For ticks specifically, we can wear that lighter colored clothing that'll help to be able to see them when they're on us, especially because some of them are really teeny tiny. And then doing tick checks, if we're out for a long period of time or when we get back to our house, doing tick checks on ourselves, our animals. For people, taking a shower when you get back, that can help dislodge any ticks that might not be attached yet, and can help you facilitate those tick checks as well. Throwing our clothes into a hot dryer, that'll kill any ticks that are on our clothing still. And then for mosquitoes, one of the things that can really help is just having full window screens and door screens. So making sure that our homes don't have any holes in our window screening. That can help with keeping mosquitoes outside the house. It's actually said one of the technologies that may have saved the most number of lives worldwide is air conditioning, because it allowed people to stay indoors and away from mosquito bites, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. So with that, I'll stop there and I will take questions, I believe, at the end after Dr. Ellen Crocker's talk.
Oh, no, actually, we can do them right now if you don't care.
Oh, sure. That's fine.
So there was a couple people that were asking for some of the QR codes that you have. I don't know if you have the links that you can provide in the chat pod, but if you don't, then you can just send them to me and I can get them to them, if you'd like. It's just that they would like that. Let's see. Is there any advice for tick hunting, to finding ticks for a citizen science? Are there any projects that are in the process and how can they contribute to those?
Oh, good question. Yeah, we have several different projects that are ongoing in entomology. So in my lab, we're working with some producers and collecting ticks from people with animals. So if you have animals, especially cattle or horses, and you have ticks present, you can send them into my lab and we will identify them for you, and that'll contribute to some community science work we have going on there. There's also the ongoing community science initiative with Dr. Reddy Polly's lab. And so they team up with the Department of Public Health to provide that tick testing as well. So if they want the ticks tested, they can send it into Reddy Polly's lab and they can be tested through that mechanism, and it contributes to community science and Department of Public Health planning and surveillance.
Okay. And there was another one, are mosquito fish native to Kentucky?
They actually are. So it's funny because when I started off with these types of talks in Pennsylvania, they are not native in Pennsylvania. So I had to always caution people to put them, be careful with these. But in
Mhm.
Kentucky, we do have some native species that are great at gobbling up the mosquito larvae, and they're native anyways. So I highly encourage you to, you can do a quick Google on which ones are native, and they'll do great at mosquito control.
Yeah, we had some of our viewers chime in on that one too. We didn't know if you knew of offhand sources for those fish.
I don't,
That's
but
fine.
yeah, I don't. Hopefully, a quick Google search would help with
Can
that.
get you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is funny. How quickly do mosquito eggs hatch?
Oh, that's a good question. So that really depends on the species. Some it doesn't take that long, and some, it can be anywhere from days to months. There are a couple species that their eggs can last, I think, about a year.
Wow.
But they're ones that are kind of designed for locations that don't have constant rainfall. So they don't dry out and they're kind of waiting for the right components to come together for them. So all of the mosquito species, the females are trying to lay their eggs in a place that provides for their immatures when they hatch. But sometimes those water sources can come in and out. They might not be, like a constant, like a bird bath or a pond. And so some mosquito species eggs can kind of withstand that and wait until there's enough water or there's enough humidity in the air or there's enough like the right temperature and then they'll hatch. So they kind of wait for these different cues before they'll hatch. Yeah.
And so I was laughing earlier because someone asked if there's how you make a bucket of doom.
They're probably talking about the like stinky mosquito traps. I've heard people call them.
I'm assuming, yes.
I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah. If that's the case, so that will lure in mostly gravid females, so females that are looking for places to lay their eggs. So they're keying in on places that have that organic matter, and that's why they smell. So you can, create your own kind of trap this way where you're putting out a bucket of water or something that has some organic material and you can just throw in, lawn clippings or any kind of greenery, and that'll start that process with the organic matter. And then you want to be either changing that out or throw in a mosquito dunk and that will kill the mosquitoes before they hatch. So essentially using what they're looking for against them.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
I know those tiger mosquitoes they just swarm my place. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, and they're the kind of starkly black and white ones, and unfortunately, they're daytime biters. So the usual advice of avoid dusk and dawn doesn't work so well with the Asian tiger mosquitoes.
I was out yesterday and trying to figure out, kept getting mosquitoes and I'm like, what is going on? I'm standing here in the sun.
Yeah.
And then I saw a bucket that had water in it and then I guess I hadn't flipped over and sure enough, there was.
Oh,
It's
gosh.
empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard to combat it for sure. Somebody asked, how did the Asian longhorn tick get here?
Oh, now that is a really good question that I don't think science knows. It looks like it may have actually been introduced a couple different times, because it was only first noticed and identified in 2017, I believe, in New Jersey. But then going back through archived records, they found, oh, this has been here probably since maybe 2012.
Okay.
So it may have been introduced a couple different times. The problem with that tick is it's very bland looking. So if the viewers notice, there's no markings on it like some of our other ticks, and it actually looks really similar to our native rabbit ticks. So it was misidentified for years as a rabbit tick, and then they're like, shoot, this is not a rabbit tick. This is something we really need to be paying attention to. So it probably came in on maybe an animal of some sort.
Like everything else, right? Global trade and global travel. We share everything, yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Anything else in there?
Yeah, there's let's see.
Somebody was talking about a bad year for deer flies. I'm assuming
Citronella work.
Oh, for mosquitoes?
Yeah.
I think it does. It has some components in it that work. So kind of depending what is being marketed, it can help. Citronella candles do seem to help because it has usually the right kind of component of citronella, but also because it has the smokiness. So the smokiness can kind of keep the mosquitoes away too. So it's kind of a two-parter with that one.
Wow, lots of interest in this topic for sure. You've struck a nerve with the viewers, Dr. Tiffin, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the two sets.
Well, no one likes bites, so I get it.
I know, I get it. Yeah, I know. So you're like, oh, she can save us. Yes, I love it.
I wouldn't go that far.
Help us at least. Yes.
Help us so much. Yes. Thank you for. Now we're itching.
I know. Like, did that?
I get that a lot after any of my talks. People are always just kind of scratching.
I know, you're like, is that? Yeah.
Is that me? Well, thank you so very much. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
That was good stuff. Yeah. Really appreciate that.
And I'm sure we'll have you back on again.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Sounds good.
Your stuff intersects with our stuff, so we appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I can stick around to the end, so I'll put some of those.
There might be some more. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Sounds great.
Awesome. All right, talking about bugging, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about bugging trees. No more bugging people. We're going to talk about what's bugging our trees. We got Dr. Ellen Crocker in the house. Yay!
Those can bug
Uh,
people too when they fall out of the trees and start
Uh,
crawling on you. I have one that's doing the exact same thing right now. And I looked down the other day and I had one of these little crawly things on me. And I'm like, where'd you come from? So,
and as we were talking about before the show, Hannah's talking about the things that bite people. I'm just talking about the things that are biting our trees.
there
So
you go.
this insect does bite, but it's just chewing the leaves of trees,
Okay.
so not a concern for us, but nonetheless, something that you might see this time of year. So, Renee, Billy, have you
Yes.
seen things that look like this lately?
Yes, I've started seeing them
that.
pop up.
Yeah, you've seen it. I've seen it. In fact, some of the photos and videos in today's presentation are from my very own backyard.
Oh,
So you
awesome.
you are probably seeing some fall webworm as well.
Mm,
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
all right, looking
Awesome.
forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Crocker.
Great. So if you're seeing silky tints at the tips of tree branches in the late summer or early fall, it could be the work of the fall webworm. While this insect is North America, it's not a serious threat to the health of your trees. So that's the good news. Nonetheless, it can come on really suddenly, and the fact that it defoliates leaves and makes your trees look really rough can be a cause for concern. So, in this episode of What's Bugging My Tree, I'm going to talk a little bit about fall webworm, what it is, what it looks like, and what it means for you. So here you can see a picture of what you might be noticing. This is the work of our native fall webworm. It's a native moth, and it's given the name webworm because this moth, the caterpillars, produce a silky tent-like web on the ends of tree branches. And inside of those tents, you've got caterpillars, lots of caterpillars. They're all feeding together, enclosed on these leaves under these tents, and they can cause pretty heavy defoliation, especially during some of their periodic outbreaks. You can just see how many of them are feeding on that leaf. The insect overwinters as a pupa inside a cocoon that's concealed, in the leaf litter and cracks and crevices in the soil. And when those moths, like you can see in this picture, hatch out, they lay their egg masses on the undersides of leaves. A single moth can lay lots and lots of eggs, so maybe 400 to 1,000 eggs. And those are going to hatch and grow into caterpillars. So they're going to start out really small, but then over the course of 1 to 2 months, grow up to an inch and a half. Those caterpillars, the larvae, are going to then, when they're ready, form those cocoons again and pupate. And then, the cycle continues. Here's just an example of what that might look like. When they emerge from the cocoon, the adult fall webworms are going to be either entirely white or maybe white with some black or brown spots. Depending on where you're located, these might complete in 1 year, they might have one generation. Maybe in Kentucky, we're probably looking at 2 generations per year. So that's a little bit, what is this fall webworm? What does it look like for you? Well, this tree is really heavily impacted by it, but for fall webworm, you can both kind of look to what is it doing in the trees, the damage that it's causing there, as well as the caterpillars themselves. What do they look like? So on the trees, they produce these tents, the web of the webworm, distinctively on the ends of branches, not kind of inside in the nooks there. These are going to be kind of further out towards the end. And those tents are serving as a home for the caterpillar. They're serving as food for the caterpillar. They're a defensive shield against things that might try to eat them. So inside, you've got lots of caterpillars. And despite the name fall webworm, here we probably are having 2 generations that are going to occur each year. The first one is going to happen earlier, March to April, while the second is the one that we typically think of later in the summer into the fall. Typically, that first generation is really small, not very noticeable, maybe a few leaves in each web, whereas that second generation is going to be the bigger one that we're really going to notice. And here's just a video of what you might see, these tents that can extend several feet into the tree. And in fact, sometimes if the tree is totally covered with those tents, they might coalesce into engulfing the whole tree. So those larvae are going to skeletonize the leaves. They're going to feed in that leaf tissue while protected by the silkiness. They're going to leave the veins of those leaves intact. And in those leaves, there's also going to be a collection of their excrement, their droppings that are in there. You can see that here in this video. Those webs are kind of dirty, they're full of trash. And, you could see lots and lots of these on a single tree coalescing to engulf more. Here's another picture of what those leaves might look like afterwards. So just a note that there's actually a fair amount of variation in what they look like, and they're different forms. So in Kentucky, you might see a red-headed fall webworm form that has more of these reddish or orangish heads. You might see these black-headed fall webworms, the same species, just different ways that they look. And there are also slight behavioral differences between these different forms. So you might see the black-headed webworms maybe having smaller numbers, smaller tents with fewer caterpillars in them, and the red-headed ones having maybe more caterpillars in a given tent. But just a note that this varies some both on the caterpillars and also in the mature moths. So which trees are impacted? Here in Kentucky, these fall webworms are capable of feeding on almost any of the species that we have. You'll most commonly see them on things like elms, hickories, maples, and sweet gums, but they have a super broad host range. And what are some potential lookalikes? Well, there are lots of other species of caterpillars, including some that produce these tents, these webs. But for fall webworm, one of the key comparisons is going to be the time of year that this happens, typically later, typically end of summer in the fall, and where those webs are located. Another web-forming caterpillar that we have is the eastern tent caterpillar, and here's a picture of what that might look like. You can see it's forming, again, these little tents, the silky construction to protect them. But two things are different about this eastern tent caterpillar. One, it's happening early in the year. This happens early spring. It's going to be on cherry and related species. Two, these tents are going to be more inside the tree at more of those branch connections, not out on the tips. And then, the caterpillars themselves look different. Here's a short video of, what they look like. Eastern tent caterpillar, different time of year, different tent production, and different looking caterpillars. Now, there are lots of other caterpillars out there as well in the late summer and fall. Another thing that you might confuse it with would be if you look at a tree from a distance, like this tree, you might think, oh, is that fall webworm? What's going on there? But in the case of this photo, what you're seeing are dead shoot tips, the result of cicadas and cicada damage. You need to get a little closer so you can determine what's going on there. Are those tents that they produce, or is that a dead shoot tip? We have other things that can cause kind of dead tips of branches and trees. This is a canker, Botryopsera canker, that will cause those dead shoot tips. That looks really different from the caterpillars and their tents that I showed earlier, the webworm. But if you're at a distance, you might squint at them and think that they're the same thing. So just something else to be on the lookout for. So from a management perspective, the good news is that fall webworm does not cause mortality in healthy trees, and it's typically not a serious concern for management. While these caterpillars can defoliate trees, and especially if you have a lot of them on a tree, this can be pretty extensive. This is happening late in the year, typically. So if this is happening late summer, fall, those trees have had all year to photosynthesize. It's a much less damaging time for that to happen than if this had happened earlier in the season. In addition, there are many native natural predators that will feed on fall webworm, which is kind of interesting. Everything from birds to other insects that are typically capable of keeping these populations somewhat in check unless you have a big outbreak year. Certainly in a woodland setting, this is not something that you need to worry about. You're probably going to see more of it on the edges than in the interior. But let's say you've got some newly planted trees or some trees that are really, really impacted. It can certainly cause ornamental value loss of your trees. This doesn't look very good, and it could stress out some of those smaller, newly planted trees. It might weaken them over time, and maybe you want to manage just kind of in those scenarios to really help them along. The simplest option for that is very technical. You just take a stick or something and disturb the tent. You disturb that web. That could be enough to take away some of that protection for those caterpillars as they feed, allow some of our native predators to really take advantage of that. Doesn't get rid of them completely, but it might be enough to minimize their damage. You could prune these out, especially when you catch them early. And the earlier you can do this, the better. The smaller those webs are, the easier it will be. But if you prune them out, just keep in mind that your pruning does some damage to the trees too. Is it really worth the damage you're doing? You want to balance those. There are also insecticide and biological control treatments that you could look at. I would urge some caution though, because in most cases, they aren't really merited, and there are lots of native insects that might be feeding on those fall webworms, and you don't want to decrease their ability to do so through an insecticide application that could have been beneficial otherwise. No matter what you're doing, though, I do want to issue the caution. Don't burn the tents while they're still in the trees. This will definitely cause more harm to the tree than the fall webworm would have. So with that, thanks for joining me today and learning a little bit more about fall webworm. Hopefully this addresses some of your questions if you're seeing this on your trees.
Thank you for that, because yes, I am seeing them on my trees. I want them gone, but so I had them really bad last year. So does that mean, and this year I noticed that is it just that they like that tree, or somehow I've got them from the year before?
Oh, you can get them kind of from the year before, I think. I think they don't move all that much. I mean, the moths that came from that tree, maybe they're going back to the same area. Their cocoon would be overwintering, maybe near there as well. So I think you could get some of that.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, if you can get in there, catch them when they're small, Renee, I feel like you could disrupt that cycle.
Yeah, because it's right on my deck. So I mean, it's
You don't
dropping.
want that.
No, I don't want that on
No.
my deck.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. No, no good. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is there another
And I don't know, there was a question about how important are
question?
these as a food source for
Yes.
birds? I
Mhm.
don't know about these in particular, but our caterpillars this time of year and throughout the year are an important food source for birds and for other things. So yeah, they're doing a lot in the environment, and typically our native predators can be quite effective against them.
So just kind of take a stick and like swish them around. Okay, got it.
That's what I did last night, Renee, as I was out videoing some of this.
All right, that's what I need to
Definitely got
do.
in there. Yeah.
They were-
Oh, good stuff.
Especially for migrating birds, maybe they could be
Yeah.
Yeah.
beneficial. So
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, thank you, Dr. Crocker. I know we'll be getting more calls and questions about these as the fall
Yeah,
progresses. Yes, but appreciate you trying to get preemptive on this and helping everybody recognize what they're seeing out there.
for sure. And if people want to learn more, we do have a fact sheet out about that. I'll put the link in the chat, but it's something that myself and Dr. Jonathan Larson put together, as well as a previous student, just to kind of provide more information. We're going to see them. So to answer some of those questions you
Well,
might have.
well, that's huge. If people realize it's not maybe the killer of the tree, right? That can change. Yeah. So no, it's good. It's good. Appreciate you putting that out. Yeah. So check out that publication, folks. It's gonna drop in the chat pod for us, a link for it.
And another thing is, we do have some invasive caterpillars like the spongy moth that we really don't want to see in Kentucky. Unfortunately, we don't have any yet, but it's important to be on the lookout for it. And that publication will give you some resources for some of our different common caterpillars and how to distinguish them.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dropped it in there for us. Yes, thank you, Dr. Crocker. Appreciate you very much. Yeah, it's an interesting subject, but yeah, don't freak out, people. It'll be okay.
DJ McNeil will be on shortly. Not today, obviously, but I might ask him, hey,
what about these fall webworms?
Fall webworm.
No, we're fortunate to have so many experts here, we can draw upon to help us share with you all. But, again, it's about you all, folks. Let us know what you all want to see or hear about. We want to try to help you be good stewards of our forests and natural resources here in Kentucky. And if there's anything we can do to help, we want to. Renee does a heck of a job of tracking down presenters whenever we need one. So let us know what you'd like to see. And remember, if you're dealing with it, there's a good chance others are as well. So we can all learn together.
Yeah, and all you have to do that is go to fromthewoodstoday.com, and there's a survey there, and you can click on that, and you can even upload photos if you see something that might be in your woods, just like Billy said, if somebody else is dealing with it, or you're dealing with it, someone else probably is too. So it might make a good topic, so you can do any kind of suggestions. And I have gotten some suggestions here lately about topics, so thank you very much for doing that, but keep them coming.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll track somebody down to cover that subject for you.
Definitely.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Like I said, we greatly appreciate you joining us, and we will see you all next week. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.